Good morning, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
And I'm hoping to be able to say good evening in a while, because there should be some people coming in from Malaysia and the Philippines. So I hope that is true. Welcome to you all. Those of you who've been here every single time, which I think the star goes to Tammy. Apart from Philip and I think Tammy's been here at every single one from June of last year when I started. So today we are looking at, and there's Jill from England. We have a few more people arriving, as I said, from far off places. I want to get going because I want to get some serious ideas connected over here. And as ever, I'm going to start with some slides, because apart from anything else, these also help me to set the scene. And just to, maybe we could put this in the chat, Angela, is that there's not time for everybody to introduce themselves, but please put in the chat anything about yourself that you would like to share with anybody else. So if you want to put your LinkedIn, your profile, whatever it is, then please do that. And we're going to use the chat today because I want to ask you to do some identification about yourself in terms of gender dynamics type. So I'm going to start with a presentation. So if you can see on the screen, and I shall get this going. So what we're looking at in our February monthly meeting in creating a new narrative for life at work, and that's essentially what we call RealSynergy 2021 between men and women. And in doing this, those of you who've been here many times before, you'll know that it is that focus on men and women. So the new narrative could be on anything, any subject in the whole world, but we're always focused on what's the impact of being men and women, different types of men and women, different diversities, yes, but focusing on this. And I love this illustration because if you like, the masculine and feminine, which is really core to all of us, is moving in that middle circle. It's always making a whole, but we're in a world that's impacting us in lots of different ways. So here we are, and you'll see some of our wonderful participants in previous events. And this value cycle is very core to beginners. It says, if I know myself and I value myself without ego, but with a sense of confidence and genuine, real, authentic me, it's really important that we all know who we are. And then when we respect GDI differences, and GDI, to remind everybody, is Gender Dynamics Intelligence, which we're going to share a little bit on. This is core today because do we know ourselves? I hope everybody who comes on this call has a very good awareness of themselves. I think you wouldn't be here unless you knew something about yourself as a man or woman. But do we know each other in terms of our differences? And if we look out on the whole world, does everybody know each other? There seems to be a lot of congestion out there at the moment, a lot of argument, a lot of challenges. And the third arrow, which is building our trust in synergy. So I just want to focus on what synergy is. So I'm going to do what Alison is so good at doing, is let's take the dictionary definition. So synergy is the interaction of multiple elements, in this case, people, in a system to produce an effect different from or greater than the sum of their individual effects. So in some ways, I want today to look at our individual effects, but also get beyond that. I'm not going to pronounce the Greek word, but the term synergy comes from a Greek word, and it means working together. Now, working together is banded out there very, very casually, you know, oh, we must all work together, we must all collaborate. And I'm wonderful to see Jill Tini here, who's got a wonderful gathering called Collaboration Global. But do we really know who we are as individual parts of that coming together? So Gender Dynamics Intelligence is something I've been studying now for a long time. Feels like all my life, but certainly officially the last 30 years. And it's about the differences, but it's for a reason. It's so that we have great relationships, we have team alignment, agile collaboration, creativity through conversations. So if we take a look at today, how do we best work together? And remember, it's about real synergy. So we know what synergy means, and we're using the term real as in genuine, authentic, but real time, what's happening in this day today in this world, wherever you are, in whichever country. And we've got the UK here, we've got hopefully Manila, Philippines, Canada, US. We're all in different places, but how do we come together? So for those of you who've not seen this before, I wanted to share the map. So this is an advanced version, and those of you who've never seen this before, then it's about, yes, we're men and women, and it is not about sexual orientation, it's not about other diversity, it's not about generation, it's not about culture, it's about core behavior. Where is our core behavior as men and women, given that we have different energies in us? So what this map is about is, are you male, are you female biologically? What are the core traits that come from being that? And what kind of masculine or feminine energy you've got? And we're defining the masculine energy as very logic thinking, process, facts. The feminine energy is indirect flow, form, intuition. And remember when you saw the yin yang moving around, they're moving around together in complementary and in order to complement each other. Generally, men do task one thing at a time, either or, and women are very relationship focused. We have a circular motion to our core behavior. So what we're looking at is core behavior, task, relationship, either or, and. Now, the goal today is to actually come into the middle. Now, that's not to become all the same, and this is where it's really important. As we enter into a magical conversation, which is about real synergy at life at work, how do we bring our perspective in? And more importantly, how do we see the other people who are in that circle, who come from different places? So they come from being a male or female, but also with that masculine or feminine energy. So let's take a look at some archetypes. Now, the reason we're going to use archetypes is that these are characters, they're roles that we can play, but it'll give us an identity. And one of the first we're going to look at here is the male with masculine energy. So this combines the M with the masculine energy. Now this ruler, he's what we would call an MM. I just remember the archetype because that will make it easier for you. The other male archetype we're going to use is the philosopher. So this is a more intuitive guy. So let's take a quick look at that. Now, as I'm doing this, what I would like you to register if you're a man, and obviously of interest by you women, but which of these would you like to choose for today? And there is going to be a direct choice. So the ruler is action man. He's decisive, he's decision maker, often thinks he's right, and he loves bullet points. He's probably short on conversation and very, as I say, action is his key. The philosopher is also a task-focused male, but he likes to be a thinker, feeler. He's softer in terms of being sensitive to people. He's what might be called a servant leader, if some of you have heard that term. So for the men on the call, I'd like you to decide which of those you're going to be today. So I make that decision, it's your choice, but because we want to have some conversation about how we see the other parties on the map. So lovely ladies, wise women out there, we have the magician. She has that inner core of relationship and multitasking, but she has a lot of strong masculine energy. And guess what? That's my place on the map. This is why I created this in the first place, because I wanted to understand how to get everybody into the circle of conversation. The next one is the sovereign. So the sovereign is our feminine-minded female. And we can see, if you can see that on the screen, we have some characteristics there. So the magician generally is in her head more than her heart, especially when she's under pressure. She's very into people and ideas and outcomes, collaborative, creative ideas. But our sovereign is also very creative, but she's more of a born nurturer. She likes to look after people in a very distinctive, caring, sensitive way, obviously, often very highly intuitive and creative. Now, this is going at speed through a very deep study of different types of people. So you might have to use your instincts or your gut feeling as to which one you choose. But I would like you to put a note in the chat about which one you would like to choose today. And because it's going to be important in terms of our conversations together. So please write, and if you're wondering which one to choose, then choose the one that is your greatest preference. Which one do you enjoy being more of the time? And which one is where you feel most confident? And there will be some stress indicators. So sometimes when people are not sure what their preference is, I ask them where their stress reactive behavior is. The masculine energy tends to go outward and the feminine energy goes inward. So the stress reactions are there. Okay, are we okay on that? Now I'm going to make these disappear. So I want you to be able to, men, to choose whether you're the ruler or the philosopher. And women, please choose the magician or the sovereign. And as I say, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know which one I want to choose, just choose the one which feels best today. Okay. Now, just very quickly on this map, as an indicator of what might be going on, men are more direct in their conversation and women are more overall indirect, in the sense of we go and we do lots and lots of conversations. So one of the fun things about our two operating patterns is men are more direct overall in their conversation in terms of straight lines, whereas women are more curved. And women often ask questions that don't really need answers. So the men on the line can have a think about that. So this is going to be part of our first breakout group. And listen very carefully as I share with you what I would love you to talk about, and we'll come back into the main group in just a minute, is when you know or feel which one you are, and you go into your group to share with others, I want you to think about what would you notice about the other three types. So for instance, if you're an MM, you're a ruler, what are the other three archetypes? What does the philosopher add to you? What does the magician add to you? What does the sovereign add to you? And we can look at work and life, but let's look at work because this is where a lot of the tensions happen. And I'm very keen that we create real synergy in the workplace. So remember, you're going to pick one of these, and whichever group you end up in is a discovery of what that feels like to be that type. How do we see the others? Let's think about that. Who'd like to offer thought on being a magician and how you see a sovereign? How does the sovereign add to us?
I'll start. I think I came to know this when I had lunch with you, Dr. Pauline, a few years ago, and then you had explained the map to me, and then I had an aha moment and said, "Oh wow! So now I get it that I have like both male and female energy, and I, um, tend to balance those. But there was a moment in my life where I didn't balance the masculine energy, and because I worked in a corporate environment where I was the only woman and I just worked with men, I had taken on this male persona in order to survive in my environment. And that was just really hurting me. I ended up leaving that career because it wasn't fruitful or helpful for my body, my mind, and my spirit. And you had pointed it out nicely in the map. I remember thinking that, and then really learning about the other types of personalities. And I just recall being incredibly annoyed and kind of just not wanting to be the sovereign, not wanting to be that nurturer, not wanting to be, the girly girl, because that just was so annoying to me. Because for me, the judgment used to be, oh, they don't get anything done. They're just all about love and peace. And and then as the years went on, and as I, educated my mind and my spirit, I realized that I needed that component in order to really be fulfilled. And it turns out that I'm a lot more, I'm more of a nurturer, more of a sovereign girly girl, in that I had suppressed that for so many years, because in order for me to survive, I had to take on this masculine, get it done, regardless of, and then I became aware of this when I had these conversations with you, and I was like, oh my goodness. And as I began to understand that, I also began to heal, and I began to be more feminine. And I'm actually a lot more feminine now than I used to be, because I've really embraced, I think, the true authentic me, which is a total girly girl, which is a total peace and love, but knowing the other masculine piece. And then I just, turn that switch on, I call it, when I need to, depending on the situation. So to me, that's been super helpful. These conversations have been helpful because they've helped me just become aware of my wholeness.
Well, I think that's interesting, because I think that the struggle I always found was my femaleness and enjoying my masculine mind, and it being translated as feminine. But I didn't want the double feminine, the female feminine. I wanted to have that femaleness as wholeness and the masculine mind. What's the other thoughts? What is it about being a magician that makes you tick when it comes to a room full of other women?
I think it gives you the best of both worlds. Because you can actually stand there and see that. And I suppose the basically looking at what Adriana was saying, I mean, obviously I never thought about this until a few years ago, actually, when we were looking at the whole transgender issue and the things that were going on. And I was like, well, I know I don't think the same way as a lot of my female friends. And I know actually I work really well with men, because I think it's a really simple way to work with men. In terms of, because I've always gone, my background's in management development, and I used to go, I'm just teaching them, telling them these really basic, obvious things that they clearly haven't grasped. But I do feel privileged to have been brought up in the UK and being sent to an all-girl grammar school. So we didn't buy into any of the kind of philosophy around women being weaker or anything. We actually had it the other way around. It was just like, we can just get on and get things done in ways that boys are still, well, they're not even thinking about it. So, there's something, so I think something in there. But
yeah. So Jill and Karina and Mahag, quick words on, because we've only got 5 minutes. What is the core of being who we are with the other three? I mean, what do they add to us?
For me, you said the word relationship, and that kind of does it. I think if you are a relational, you can see things from different perspectives, and you do see relationships as valuable, then you can get on with everybody. And for me, you think that is, everyone's like that, but it's not until you realize that people that sit with a different energy, whether it's masculine or the nurturer, not everyone can do that. So for me, it was to being a magician was about relationships and obviously collaboration. But I can see how easy it is to move into some of the other spaces because I was brought up and taught to be a nurturer. You know, good girls don't do that. You know, look after your sister and all that kind of thing. So I instinctively go to nurture. I'm an empath. I can feel people's pain and I do understand it. And I am intuitive, I believe, but I think to be a magician serves me better. And that's where I'm my natural space.
That's interesting.
That
For
is
me-
interesting to say a
And-
magician serves me better,
I
because
like
you can see the conditioning as women entering a world where masculine is considered better, stronger, more efficient, just that hierarchy of, you know, one better than the other. And for me is until we level these two energies up and we value both and respect both, we will never come to the new game that we're aspiring to. There's so much healing for us, for women, that has to happen to really appreciate that part of us, that feminine energy.
Yes. So
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that one, because I also notice about myself that I tend to be the more, I need to get things done. But I think my lesson came when I gave birth to my youngest daughter, and she actually taught me to be a lot more feminine, because she was just, you know, I thought that being that feminine energy, being in the feminine energy meant you're a damsel in distress. So I had that with me, and my daughter came along, and she was, you know, life was very easy for her because she didn't have to try very hard, and things just happened for her because she was just being in her feminine. And I was trying so hard to be in my masculine that it was all uphill. And I think she really taught me to see that the finding a balance, you know, it would serve me. So yeah, I wanted to share that.
Love that.
Alison,
I have to agree with, I was going to say that I have to agree also with what Jill was saying. I was looking at both, and I know I do have, you know, from both of them, but definitely the connecting, the collaboration, that I think it's a lot of me. But I'm also, I feel very intuitive and sensitive to people's needs. So it's, you know, really complements each other, but I do feel that I do need to be more the magician versus the servant. Yes.
thank you. Alison.
I love, the thing I love about being a magician is my ability to use logic and take action. And the thing that I'm healing is not thinking that my feminine side, my intuitive side, my nurturing side is weakness. And I've had to do a lot of understanding that they are both strong and value, but my feminine side, I for years thought was a weak version of myself. And finding the value in that nurturing, being the sovereign and using my intuitive and creative skills is just as powerful as being logical or taking action. So, and that was the conditioning of thinking masculine was something more powerful.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
We are at time.
Yes, so let's go back to the main room.
Okay.
Time on this, but this is an experiment. We haven't done this before in terms of going into our archetypes. So I'm interested to hear some of the feedback, and we can do more of this another time. But let's have we got everybody back? I was just having a peek at who was in which room, and I like to know that on my list I got most people right, I think. Shall we hear from, who should we hear from first, Angela? Should we hear from the rulers?
Sure. So that's Boris, Chris, and Philip.
Sure. I made some notes. We chatted quite a lot about how we identified first. So I made some notes about the way in which we identify quickly. And if I can use, I'm going to name you, Boris, because this was a really brilliant way of summing it up, is that half the decision process is already made because you can see in front of you who you've got. You've either got a man or a woman. So on that basis, half the understanding is already given. That's the easy bit. The not so easy bit is the display of the masculine to feminine energy, which then helps you define the archetype so that you've got a sense of who it is you've got opposite you. So that's the first bit we discussed. And the second bit we discussed was about the observation. So in addition to looking at the person and the way in which they may be, we are looking at the individual in the way they react or are being, so that we can observe things about them that help us substantiate our initial observation around which archetype they are. So they're the two things that we came up with from our group, but that's because we spent a huge amount of time discussing what being MM was all about.
So in your group, you had Boris and Chris.
Boris and Chris,
right?
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And I'll make a comment. My observation, Pauline, is that I realized I wasn't really an MM. I think Philip kind of diagnosed me as more of an MN, you know, and I get that. And that makes a lot more sense to me.
Well, that's good, because I think the observation I was, you know, is being in these groups with allegedly the same, then you can see the difference or not. So should we take a look at the sovereign group? Who was in the sovereign group? I know Dawn was.
Yes.
And Hannah?
And Hannah.
And Tammy.
And Tammy. Ladies, would you like me to just feed back? Because we didn't agree that. So
that would be great, Dawn. Thank you.
Well, like the rulers, we had a lot of discussion about issues around being sovereign, but we then focused mainly on rulers as our counterpoint, if you like, to who we are as sovereigns. And so we recognize that rulers are very logical and all of those things, but not all answers to everything are in decision making are black and white. There is a lot of grey in decision making, and a lot of that grey surrounds feelings, and people want to be able to feel that they're heard and understood. There are flaws. One of the ways we talked about how we could actually begin to counterpoint and address the challenges that maybe rulers would present to people like us. And we thought that we needed to find the flaw in the logic and find other analogies to explain and to get them to review the way they're thinking, and really explore those grey areas in decision making and take a fresh perspective and come up with ways of co-creating, understanding the boundaries. And in fact, we had a lovely story from Hannah about the possibilities of introducing a new CEO with new shoes, with different ways of thinking and being. So that's where we got to. We didn't really get to the other two archetypes, really.
That's fascinating. Thank you, Dawn. That was brilliant. I hope you're all really listening to these very, very different views. And also what happened, I know we only had 11 minutes, so there was a limit, but the sovereigns were focused on the ruler and the rulers were focused on themselves. So interesting point.
By the way, quickly, Dawn, I love the fact you need to look for a flaw in our logic. You won't find it, but I love the fact you need to look for one. It's
There
Lovely.
always is a flaw in your logic, Philip.
Oh, never, never, Dawn.
Philip, I'll give you the floor. It's really simple. We only consciously process.
Let's go to the magician, and Jill's going to give us an insight. But what's interesting, the magician, we were the largest group, and we didn't talk about men at all. So, Jill.
Well, we were kind of more, not fixated, that's the wrong word. We were kind of curious about where it came from within us. And Val was saying how being brought up in a girls' grammar school, there was nothing that you couldn't do. So understanding relationships would be quite profound in that kind of all girls environment. You had to get on with the girls. And also the thing that I liked about that scenario is that, you know, everything can be achieved. You don't have to wait for the Prince Charming to come and rescue you to do anything for you. It's like, we'll roll our sleeves up and we'll get on and we'll do it. Thank you very much. So, and I see that as very true. And we also looked at how we had elements of the other feminine trait, but possibly that was to do with society and how we were brought up. So being a nurturer, for me, I mean, I'm getting on for 60. So all those years ago, when I was 5 or 6, you were given a doll to play with, you know, and that was the thing that you were taught how to look after other people and be kind and be nice and all those kind of things. And whilst, yes, I can do that, the minutiae of the relationship is what fascinates me. The what can be achieved in a collaboration just is what's possible. So this big picture of like, what else could we do? So we looked a lot at how we felt very comfortable in the magician space. All of us felt very comfortable in that space, although we could see that we could utilize and move from where because we're magicians, we can actually take on any other persona, whether it be masculine or feminine, to for our advantage in the relationships that we're building. What else was missing, Pauline? What else did we say?
No, that was great. And I think I wrote the note down, but quite a few of us, and there was 7 of us, I think, we said, the magician serves me better. So that's just a point of view for the sovereigns to think about, but also that we enjoyed, once we balanced out of feminine and masculine, we enjoyed being the magician with that logic and our ability in a way to get on with men. So that, as I say to you all, we didn't actually talk about the male types. We didn't talk about the ruler or the philosopher. But I think as magicians, we felt we had the edge on that. And in fact, Val said, we've got the best of both worlds. And that would be my sentiment as well. We got the best of both worlds. Yeah. So let's have a look at the philosophers. Who was in the philosopher group? I know.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, it was me and Paul and Adolfo. And I think it was really interesting because we all brought up different experiences we've had where the teams we've worked on have been overloaded by either MMs or FFs. And the toxicity that builds when it's a team of MMs, and you know, whether it's the backstabbing or you know, I think if the teams are overloaded with one or the other, that if you are an MF or you are an FM, the ability to sway between those two, it brings out those, and kind of either nothing gets done or everybody hates each other. And when the synergy is not there, it kind of brings out the worst in others. I know Paul was talking about, I'll let Paul talk, but he was talking about working with all FFs.
Yeah, I was in an environment where there was a huge amount of FFs in comparison to MMs. And one of the things you quickly got to learn was that the processes were slow, innovation was slow, new initiatives were slow because there was constant questioning. And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just that became the culture. And I think that's the point we were discussing more than anything on that.
I remember something that clicked when I heard all other teams speak. One, we're the only team that spoke about the other 3, which I found that the MFs or FMs, whatever. I mean, the males that are female minded, magicians, I think we are the creators or philosopher, right? We're the creators of synergy because we identified the difference between competition and synergy. I happen to have, I will be known as the leader who awoken people's spirits, specifically men's. And what does that mean, right? Well, what it means is that really we find groups of people, male and female balanced, and we can see the benefit that both bring to the table. We have no issues in going into our mind and immediately bringing the room back to a point where we're all in the same place. Identify a clear line to where we're all going, knowing that it's going to be squirrely and predetermining that, and actually getting the strengths of everybody to help in that direction. So we notice that, for example, the FFs, they don't want to stay in the same point asking questions, but if there's no MF, if there's no females in the room that are okay with breaking shit, right? That girl that is the male-minded female, the one that broke her toys, the one that was like boys trying to figure stuff out, that didn't care about, you know, being too nice or too good or too, you know, and didn't fall into that trap, right? Are the females that lead other females into also thinking entrepreneurially and stuff. And then the males in the room, the MMs, either one, get shut down and realize that the line needs to get pushed that way, or the FMs in the room will actually get some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Motivation to use every strength of the team. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a great talk. It was very pleasant. We didn't have I feel like we got cut short.
Yeah.
We did.
Well, we did, and I know that Paul mentioned this last time. All of these subject matters we could dig in much deeper, but we really want to get the juice out. And one of the things for everybody to be aware of that we're gathering the last since November, December, January, this one, to really put it into a review and a research document, not as in the background, but really get it out there. So understanding these archetypes, and I think what is fantastic is, as you say, that the MMs were talking about themselves, the ruler were talking about themselves, the philosopher was talking about all the types, but magicians, we just focused on us and sovereigns, and the sovereigns were about the ruler. Just noticing that shows that there's a dynamic going on, which is about all our differences. And I honor Chris Steele, you said that you felt that you were not actually in the MM1, you realized that there was a bit more philosopher in you. And it's that realization that we've all got wholeness in us. And as men, you can be the philosopher or the ruler, but there's a preference. So really gaining what is the benefit of the other types to us in a work environment, especially in a world where we need to change our economy, our economic structures to really have synergy in the way we run businesses together. So
and Pauline, if I may, just to compliment, since you brought me up, I think a prerogative, it's our responsibility as leaders these days is to, I think Philip kind of drew it out, be more of a chameleon, right? Because I know that I identify primarily as a magician, and that's a feminine trait. At the same time, I'm learning to be able to adapt and relate most effectively to men and women, and men that might identify as women and vice versa, and et cetera. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely, and it's about our ability. Remember, on the picture, it's about getting into that circle. When you enter into the circle of conversation, you come with your preference, but you value the other, and the conversation is in the center of the group, not in it coming from us. Now we've got.
Sorry, the biggest thing that I've seen here is the distinction between identification and just biological nature, right? Like I've been in a couple of these calls where the moment you say male and female, somebody goes, well, what if I am a male but I identify as female? Doesn't matter. It's not your sexual orientation. It really does have to do with your biology and the energy that you bring to the room when you're communicating. Right, have nothing to do whether you identify as or not. It's really what energy you bring to the room, knowing yourself.
Yeah. So in terms of just take a slightly different focus. As we're all different, these 4 archetypes, and there could be more archetypes, of course, but just taking these 4 because they give us a way of relating to differences. How do we create a future scenario that is suitable to all of us? And how do we become aware of that? So let's have a quick look again. I just want to show you some ideas here that I felt was something we could do in a second breakout, but the second breakout will be very short. But I want to ask you as well is whether, oops, as our goal is to create the future together. And this statement came to us, Angela, myself, Philip, Alison, we were looking at this from a corporate heart perspective. Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. Vision with action can change the world. We want to seriously change the world, and we hope that you want to do it with me and us. I found this picture, and just as a quick reference, this was created by the Future Laboratory. But if you look at this, there's places for women, the sovereigns, to relax. There's a lovely circle where we can nurture people. There's still the offices at the top of the screen. There's lots of identity with light and nature and all of these things which we can use. Now, I know we're in lockdown and we're on screens, and this is about different ways of working. But a quick session now on, we'll literally have 5 minutes each, and we won't necessarily do all the feedback from everybody. But now you know the mix. You've got sovereigns, you've got magicians, you've got rulers, and you've got philosophers. In your small group, which will be just randomly put together by Angela, and maybe 4 in each group or something, Angela, I don't know, what do you suggest? But think of one activity, one crazy activity, something different that we can do in the future that will help us to become a new narrative, which is totally different to what we've had before. Let's throw everybody into a breakout room and just come up with a really crazy good idea. And it might well be dancing from Hannah.
And how much time are we given for this one? 5 minutes? Okay.
So go for it. Group, just say hello and find out something different, something really different.
Yep.
Particularly with a group of people, is that we sit down and we co-create music. And that has to bring in lots of different harmonies, chords, all sorts of things. And if we can conceptualize stories in terms of music and song, I've been doing that with my granddaughter just yesterday. And you come up with something quite radical and different than you have before. Now, how that would work in companies, I don't know. But wasn't there a story about Microsoft or Virgin using basketballs or, you know, those kinds of off-the-wall type activities to get people to think in different ways? That's my contribution.
I like that. I mean, I like the music thing. I love food, and I think that just a potluck and a drum circle every week, every 2 weeks, you know, just have a shit ton of drums and maracas, and people's like meet you in the conference room or outside, bring some food that you cooked at home. You are not allowed to bring anything you bought, even if it's disgusting. Must learn to cook, right? and so right, like getting people, no, the rules are these, and so eat each other's, you know, foods or attempt at, and just collaborate, maybe share the recipes, have an hour or two of talking about creativity that is outside of the organization. So.
Love that idea.
I do think though, if you're talking on a corporate level, all these ideas have merit, because you should really change the activities regularly, because while somebody might be into music and be enthusiastic and maybe want to participate in that, somebody else might not. They might be switched on to the food element. I mean, one of the things I was going to suggest is stories tend to be about the past, experiences of the past. So why don't we do future stories where people create stories for the future?
Yep. Yeah.
And then you can mingle
Scenarios.
all these ideas on a corporate level.
Yes.
And go ahead, Tammy.
With the music or the food, there's stories behind that. There's the stories of the food you like and why and where you had it. And with the music, there's reasons why people resonate with different music. It's the music you grew up with. It's the music that your grandparents or your parents played. It's the concerts you went to. There's stories there. And the thing is there's commonalities in stories, and those narratives weave things together. And then to what Paul was saying, it's what do you imagine?
Future.
What do you imagine? What do you wish people knew about you? And how do you want to change the world?
Yeah, I like that. Yes.
It's for me, the image of being in nature's in group and create an environment that is tuned in with nature and intuition. So, you know, what do the trees want us to know about this project? What are we gathering from the soil, and those messages really tuned in with the magic of nature. I know it sounds woo-woo, but
no, it's beautiful.
As humans, we're so zoned out. Yeah.
I could see MMs being dragged outside to look at the trees. Dragged to look at the trees, you know?
Yeah. All right,
Especially
time to go back.
Something that would, you know, I know in a lot of European countries, they have more of like a siesta. They have a long lunch. And I think anything to decompress in the middle of the day that would allow the people on a team to kind of go off in their own space and re-energize, you know, the recess version of an adult work environment.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
I do too. I think there's something about that, being able to be productive in a job or a workspace, and knowing that at some point in the day you can flip to another side of your brain, or flip to a more natural resting place for yourself. So I think that would be a way to recharge and to reconnect. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I love the idea of actually the somatic aspect of it, getting up and getting out and moving around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it gives you that recharge, you know, where you just have to leave behind what you were working at, and it just gives you that restart to come back to it, and you're going to feel more energized, like you said, and just more at peace, you know, more at peace. And I think more happy with yourself too, where you're not feeling like so pressured with having to get things done, that you can feel okay to back away from the work. Because sometimes we, you know, if we take a break, we feel that we are feeling guilty. Oh, I should be doing this. I should have gone. You know, we just feel like we're missing out if we're not getting it done. So definitely, I think that recess, like you mentioned, I think it's a fabulous idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you know, just companies nowadays, you don't have access to do all those things, or the money, or things of that nature, that I would end up sleeping on my lunch break, thinking that would help. And then I would come back to work, and it would take a while to kind of get back into it. Whereas if there was some sort of outlet, whether it's a music room or an athletic facility or a place to read, or just communicate with yourself in a way, I think that would truly benefit the team in general, because, you know.
Have you got an idea?
I was going to say, I'd have laughter labs, literally, so that you could go into a room and you could in some way access something that you find funny. So be it that you programmed it with, you know, your favorite comedy thing, just something, because laughter is the thing that shifts us. If we look at one of the things through the whole COVID pandemic, it's just like all the funny things that people send us all the time.
Yeah.
So laughter labs.
The other thing I was
Yeah.
thinking was some way of making it, I don't know, having almost a champion of the week who thinks of different ideas to do at work. So some way of acknowledging it in the workplace that doing these different things is a value added to productivity. And it's okay, because if you think about the different archetypes, they're going to want to do different things. And one of the things we were saying in The Magician is sometimes we feel that it's seen as a weakness to be feelings oriented. But we've got to make sure that we do some activities like go and hug everybody, but not everybody wants to be hugged maybe, but it's okay to do it.
So real quick, let me just pivot to virtual. One idea in the context of virtual, which is where we are these days, is if you can't do the somatic hugging, you know, going to the playground, that type of thing, here's an activity that I've found works. I call it a power share. It's where it's kind of basically everybody has to participate, and you put a topic on the table and you go around. It's almost like a fire circle, like a talking stick concept. And then everybody has to participate, but the key is you direct it toward a specific topic. The topic may be controversial, it may confront people, and the key is it's sacred time to talk. So everybody gets to show up and show who they are, and everybody else gets to relate in that context as well. So that's an activity.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the main room, but that's exactly, Chris, that is exactly what a magical conversation is. So thank you. Or maybe if you all take yourself off mute, and I'm just going to share a couple of ideas from our group, which was laughter, lots of it, doing things differently, flipping in the brain at a regular point during the day by leaving the computer or leaving your desk, and also a power share, which is Chris's idea, which is very much a magical conversation. A power share being a sacred space where during the day, you always do something that is about a topic, and you come with a almost a talking stick, so it's a safe space. Any other ideas, and make them quick? Anybody want to put their hand up to an idea?
Adolfo.
I'm like,
Let's do
well, we figured.
Adolfo,
Sorry?
She just called on you, man. Go.
Oh, okay. So we figured that food and music. Sharing the food that you cook with others and sharing the stories about why you cook that or whatever, and you know, bringing up a drum circle and letting people create from the nowhere, dance around and get out their creativity. We also talked about getting out into the street and talking to the trees and the soil and the nature. We figured how fun it would be for the FFs and the FMs in the room to drag the MMs out to the sun and talk to the trees.
Yeah, we have to drag Boris and make him hug trees.
Boris is gonna be, the trees don't talk, damn it. No, they do. We will.
Okay, let Dawn have a go. Dawn wanted to say something.
No, it's exactly right. I think that engaging with the environment is really something we should plan for in the future. I mean, I've been working with somebody who's looked at ecotherapy as her doctorate for years and years and years, and it's just becoming so much more of what life is and would be like. And I noticed with your plan, Pauline, that lovely drawing, which has echoes of the workspace, there weren't any trees in there. We need to actually put some vibrancy, because that's life. Yes. And it's the reality of life. And those trees are very logical. So it's about...
there needs to be nature, there needs to be trees, and colour. Yeah, lots of energy, colour. Tammy.
Well, it was the way that Angela suggested we go out into nature. Ask the trees what they think about this. We have to consider nature, how whatever decisions we make, the impact that it has, not just on people, but on our planet. And that was profound for me, because that's something that not enough companies take into consideration.
No,
I think because we're coming up to time, but I think it's all about how do we value these different things? So if somebody suggests something and our archetype is going, oh no, I think that's silly, can we check ourselves and say, hang on, where did that suggestion come from? Does that relate to their needs as the archetype they are? So I would like to send you all the PowerPoint that I created, especially the page where we've got the archetypes preferences on, and it's thinking about, is that as valuable? So if the ruler was thinking about profit and productivity, but his people need time out, laughter and dancing, then that's okay. Obviously not necessarily all day, but you know, it's about the conversation about what is valuable. Everything is valuable if it changes the energy base of the person who's working and living and breathing. And we referenced that in our group about, it was all about flipping the brain into some different energy resources. So I'm having fun gets more done. I like that. That's a mantra from Val. So having fun gets more done. So what we've learned today, and I would love to have more time. If any of us want to have more time in the future, we can plan this in. But I think we've got some really good results in terms of understanding our archetypes. I would love you to think about that more and identify the stories in your own existence where archetypes that you're not have been in your life and maybe cause some toxicity. There was a mention of that by the philosophers about sometimes the rulers, maybe for some sovereigns and magicians, there's toxicity that happens when our counterpart is not behaving in the way we would like. But how do we actually really synergize the whole world together? That is our goal with these monthly meetings. We are at 8 o'clock, and I know that's a different time, and we honor the fact that Mahanran Ahmed is here from Kuala Lumpur, so it's now midnight, I believe, over there. And so thank you for coming to this session today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
All of you for sharing so honestly about your archetypes. I think there's a lot more that we can do with this. We would like some of you to share your stories into the research piece. So if that's something which I'll get back to you on, Angela, and I will organize that. And the next one will be on the second Monday of March, which I haven't looked for the date. But if there are no more closing thoughts, I would just like to honor all of you with arriving and being here. My mission in life is to create real synergy and harmony in this world. And that as we work together as men and women, we take those fundamental operating patterns and ensure that business looks totally different and it impacts our life in a positive way. And I would love your feedback on anything that we've discussed. Send it to us on email or LinkedIn. This is going forward. We want to make a difference in the world, and I hope that's what you want to do as well.
Hey, Pauline, before we go, I just wanted, just something came up real quick, the emphasis on translation amongst our archetypes, because what Angela hit was incredibly important. I talk to the trees all day long, and I could see how difficult it would be for somebody that can't do that to simply put it in the bucket of, oh, this is horseshit, rather than understanding what I mean by talking to the trees, and then them taking their archetype and talking to the trees in their own language, hopefully. So translation, we need to somehow find a way.
Absolutely. What I want you to do is to all smile and wave or do a thumbs up. I want to take a picture. Okay. Thank you, Adolfo. That was very important. It is about the translation. If any of you have any thoughts about the way the archetypes can translate better, that's part of the dialogue. That's part of the narrative. So keep on this conversation going. And I love you all, magicians, sovereigns, rulers, and philosophers. And keep on laughing. We have to make a lot happen in this world today because it's seriously challenged. So let's make it a very fun place.
I hope.
Thank you.
And see you on March
Oh.
8th.